Okay, well, for everybody that can hear and see, I want to welcome everybody. If you've been out here for a year or longer, this is the second one you've seen. What we're here for today, it's National Fall Protection Stand Down Week for OSHA. We're also in accordance with Jacobs Safety Week corporate-wide, and we've made today's focus all about fall protection safety. Still, each year, one of the leading causes of injuries and fatalities in the construction trade and industry across the board for all trades. A lot of it has to do with recognition of what type of fall protection that we're using, when to be tied off, how to be tied off appropriately, and then ultimately what to do in the event of a fall. We've got a lot of people out here today. It's pretty wild to see everybody out here in one spot. You know, you walk these buildings, huge job site. You don't get a feel for how many people are on the job site till you get everybody in one spot. So before we get too far going, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come down here. Luckily, it's a nice day. I think last year, if you were here, about 85 degrees, pretty hot. It was one of our first really, truly hot days of the year. So weather cooperated pretty good, and we didn't have any rain this year. So what we're going to focus on today, we've got a couple things lined up. We're going to focus on really the next phase of our fall protection and our working from heights challenge. You know, the next phase of what we're doing, a lot of ladders, a lot of scissor lifts, a lot of aerial lifts. That has been one of our bigger challenges, is for the recognition of how and when to be tied off when you're working from a ladder or working from a scissor lift or working from an aerial lift. One of the bigger challenges we've had is people and the tradespeople positioning a ladder near a fall hazard and not recognizing when they need to be tied off, assuming that the handrail is their fall protection. Dave Barklage with Midwestern Safety is going to do a few words about aerial lift and ladder fall protection safety. DBI Saddle Rep George List is going to do a test weight. If you were here last year, do you remember that, to show the exact force that a person of normal height and build can create during a fall, and the importance of making sure that you're wearing your fall protection correctly to distribute the force across your body and ultimately do what it's designed to do, and that's save your life or protect you from striking the working area below. From there, we're going to do a live staged demonstration of what a fall event looks like. We're going to lower a mannequin dressed in full body harness, position and stage a fall, and we're going to do a retrieval. Like I said, not everybody thinks about what to do in the event of a fall. They protect themselves from the fall, but if you need to depend on your harness and then you're there, you're hanging from your harness and you're incapacitated basically because you're left there and you can't do anything, you need to have a backup plan. You need to have a plan B. If you fall into your harness and it does everything you need it to do and it's designed to do, you need to have a backup plan. A lot of our backup plans include retrieval from an aerial lift if we're on the outside of the building in a position like we're going to stage the fall here today. We do have the vertical yellow man basket that's staged at the corner of Parkview if we need to retrieve people from the side of a building where an aerial lift would not be able to reach. We would utilize the crane in that scenario. And then ultimately the goal is to get the person who has fallen into their harness down as quick as possible. You only have a matter of minutes to know what to do in that event and get those people down as quick as possible. And then from there, you know, you would assess the individual, make sure if they're hurt, we get the nurse involved, or we get the paramedics, we get the professionals involved to make sure they get the care they need. So everything in fall protection is designed to protect you from striking the area below. Before we get into the demonstrations, we've got OSHA Area Director Bill McDonald and Mike Manicki here today. I'm going to let Bill McDonald say a few words.
Well, thank you. Can everybody hear me? I can't project as loud as he can, I don't think. Last year we entered a partnership here with ACW. Our goal is to make sure everybody here goes home safe and in one piece, just the way you came. And to that event, you know, you've got a great track record here. The safety professionals are doing a good job, and you guys are all doing what you need to do. That's wearing your fall protection and working safely. Job sites like this make my job a little easier because I don't have to go out and inspect a big job like this. I might trip over these wires though, so better be careful. Every year, or last year, let's say last year we had 900 fatalities in the construction industry. That's 3 per day. 3 per day of your brothers in the union, of other workers out there on job sites. That's way too many fatalities. And of those, 345 were falls. So that's more than almost 1 a day. Somebody's falling and dying in America. That's just way too many. So we do this event to try to raise the awareness and give everybody a chance to sit down and reflect upon, hey, we need to tie off, we need to take this serious, make sure that we take care of our brothers. You know, you don't want to be that person that said, well, I saw him, it was a 1-minute job, and you know, we all did it, so you know, even if it's a 1-minute job, it only takes a second to fall. So most falls will occur instantaneously, as you know, and most falls actually occur from 20 feet or less. Over 67% of them are 20 foot or less, so you need to respect any heights. So what we want to do here is just raise the awareness level, and I know DBISL is going to do a demonstration to show you the fall arrest powers while you're out there. So I want to thank you all for working safely. I want to thank you all for looking out for yourselves and for your union brothers. So with that, I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. For people in the back who might not have heard that, the falls create 345 construction-related fatalities a year. So that's over 1 a day, and the leading height that is happening from is 20 feet and under. So that goes back to the recognition of not only when you need to have fall protection, but what type of fall protection that you use to keep you from striking that area below. My phrase that I usually use on something like that is, you know, if you have too much fall protection, it's typically referred to as, that's fall protection for show. I'm walking around, you hold it up, you show me that you're tied off. But at the end of the day, if it's not going to keep you from striking the area below, it's no better than not wearing anything, because you're still going to strike the area below. So that is the awareness, one of the awareness points that we're trying to get out to everybody, especially on this site, because we're using fall protection now, and like I said, ladder safety and aerial lift safety and short heights inside the building, to know what types of fall protection to use. Limiting that free fall is one of the most important aspects of choosing fall protection. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave.
As Corey said, I'm Dave Barkledge with Midwestern Safety Equipment out of St. Charles, and we did this for you last year, and I got the okay to actually stand up here, so half of you can probably see me. But what we wanted to do is kind of break it down, as Corey said, and we always talk about fall protection. We wanted to do a lot on ladders and basically lifts and things like that. Some of the stats that I pulled the other day that I do in ladder training is falls are leading cause of occupational death. Typically 700 to 800 people fall fatalities per year. As Bill said, it's like 364. Here's a number that's shocking. 2,000. That's the number of people who go to the hospital every day due to a ladder-related incident. That's a lot of people. 100 is the number of workers that are long-term or permanently disabled every day from a ladder-related incident. 1 person dies every day from a ladder incident. Here's a number that's really going to be shocking. 724,000 ladder-related injuries per year. And it could be just as much as turning an ankle, falling, cracking your head. Actually had one in my family where my wife fell off the bottom rung of a ladder, ended up on a sidewalk in a pool of blood, and had to go to the hospital. So it does happen. Corey addressed on ladders. The one thing we see on a lot of construction jobs are, especially where you might have steel cables for your handrails on the side, which you've engineered out to fall, but then we find a ladder right next to it, and somebody's 3-4 steps up on a ladder and they're above the handrail, so you haven't engineered out anything. The other thing we see in ladders, pick the appropriate ladder for the job. We talk to contractors all the time. They have 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot step ladders in their arsenal. Which one do you go get? The 6-footer. Why? It's the lightest. And pretty soon you're on the top cap, so make sure you pick the appropriate ladder. The other thing too is you need to inspect your ladders. You want to make sure that the feet on the bottom of the ladder, like the tires on your car, make sure they're in place and they're fine. So pick the appropriate ladder. Don't be reaching out over ladders. Make sure your belt buckle's between the rungs of the ladder. And also, if you're using extension ladders, remember you can't put a 2x12, a paint can, or anything out there underneath. You need to level the ladder. Understand that on an extension ladder, if you're 1 inch off on the bottom of being perpendicular up, you're 19 inches off on a 28-foot ladder at the top. So make sure you pick the appropriate ladder. One thing we want to look at on aerial lifts is you're always tied off in lifts. We want your feet on the ground on these lifts. Tied off in a lift all the time. I go by small job sites occasionally where I'll find a guy setting a lift up and not tied off at all. He may just be moving a little bit. We want you tied off all the time. Anybody ever seen a guy stand on the railing of a JLG? Stand on a bucket in a JLG. I've seen a short step ladder and a scissor lift before. These are to be platforms that you're actually working on. Occasionally, and we have to address this with different contractors, some don't want you climbing out of baskets at. Sometimes you have to. We use double leg lanyards. This one's always tied off to the appropriate tie-off spot in your lift. If I have to get out, I want to make sure that I have the approval of a supervisor to go to some place that's actually substantial to tie off to. I'll tie off my second hook to that before I remove the one to climb out to do whatever I have to. But it's something you have to talk to your supervisors before ahead of time, your safety people, and make sure it's okay for you to do. The other thing we've noticed on job sites occasionally too in working these lifts, occasionally people get haphazard and don't chain a gate closed on a scissor lift in that. Make sure they're all closed and you're in there. The other thing too that we notice a lot that we want to talk on properly, how you put a harness on and how you wear it. How many people have ever seen leg straps hanging around some guy's knees as they're walking through a job site? Not a great place to be if you fall. Corey just addressed, if you fall, we got to figure out some way to get you. So you're hanging with your leg straps not going where you think they should be. Chest straps on your harness, always across the middle of your chest. Bill McDonald addressed the fact that most falls happen 20 feet or less. To fall 4 feet takes a half a second. Your brain doesn't even register that you're falling until you hit the ground. That's why you usually crack your elbow when you slip on ice. To fall 144 feet, which would be roughly a 9-story building here, you'll hit the ground in 2 seconds flat. So you have to look at, you're creating a massive amount of force. And Corey addressed the issue a minute ago. When you fall, part of the fall protection plan is, how am I going to get a guy down? It could be as simple as a ladder or a lift that they're going to look at. One other thing I want to address too is, how many people inspect your equipment prior to every daily use? I'm not going to ask for hands because there's safety guys in here right now, but basically take a look at your harness, your retractables, and your lanyards. Make sure they're acting in working order. On your retractables, don't assume that it hasn't had something. Pull all the retractable out, look at it, jerk it on a couple times, make sure it actually locks up, check the webbing to make sure there's no holes or burns in it, and all the snap hooks work. You don't know if you're using the bottom 3 feet of it and somebody put a hole in it 6 feet up. So make sure you look at this equipment every day and log it off. What we want to do here now is, we've got the DBI trailer here, and we've got a 6-foot lanyard hooked up here with a 220-pound test load, which is basically simulates, 300-pound guy, supposedly. And part of the thing is, a shock absorber lanyard will always load at 900 pounds or less. But what we want to show you is how far this thing actually descends. And people talk about how high off the ground do I have to be restrained or tied off. A lot of time 18 foot's a trigger figure. And what it assumes is you're 6 foot tall, the D-ring on my properly placed harness on my back is basically between my shoulder blades. I've got 6 foot of lanyard. I'm going to tear out 3.5 feet. You're up to about 15.5 feet now. You got to have a little bit extra that you hit. Don't assume that the ground is always a thing, the bottom level. You may have a toolbox there, rebar or something up. You're looking for the lower level that you might hit. And you can use an example. We'll use a car plant. It's 30 feet to the ground. I'm not worried about hitting the ground, but I'm worried about a punch press hanging below me. So with that, we're going to load up this weight, drop it, and give you an idea of what a fall looks like on a lanyard. while this is going up, the top of this bar is actually 14 feet. So if you figure that that weight is basically right behind your neck when you fall, you'll actually see where the weight ends up. And people in the back aren't going to be able to see it, but you'll find out that weight's pretty close to the ground. Add another 4 feet to that, because that's about what your body's going to look like extended.
On 3, 1, 2, 3.
Now, basically what we had in this case, because we didn't drop it a full distance like you were tied off, you notice how the shock pack, it's not a bungee. When you guys call me and say, I want those bungee cord shock absorbers, it's just a rip that's straight down. And what it does is it limits the load. That was actually 825 pounds put on your body. So OSHA says in a harness you can have 1,800 pounds or less. On a shock absorber, we're under 900. So you can see it's not a real jerky ride coming down. Now, what this would simulate is the guy's falling, I got to figure out how to get him down. And it could be as easy as just getting a step ladder and having him walk up, unhook, and climb back down, or what you're going to see here in a moment.
Before we get into that, I don't know if everybody heard that in the back. Even with everything set up, that's still 800 pounds of force on your body. But it's a far better result than A, not having anything, or the amount of force that we put on your body with fall protection equipment that is damaged. So with that, like I said, the next stage of fall protection is to ultimately know what to do in the event of a fall. A lot of times we don't think about the plan B. We've had an event out here about a year ago, 10 months ago now, where an iron worker on the south tower actually had to depend on his harness. He reached up to pull himself up out of a seated position, and he lost his hand. He lost his handhold on what he was grabbing to pull himself up. And it was on the south tower when we were about level 5, and he fell into his harness. The workers that were with him, I'm not sure if those iron workers are still on site. I know we had a lot of talks with them at the time of the event. The harness worked, everything worked as designed, but then that plan B had to be enacted. They snapped into action. They got the yellow man basket, got him into the building, got him out of his harness and down to the nurse, and ultimately getting taken care of in under 5 minutes. Which, if you're hanging from a harness, or if anybody's ever experienced a fall and hanging from your harness, 5 minutes is a very welcomed amount of time. Anything longer than that, you start getting very uncomfortable. The harnesses are meant to distribute weight around your body, but a lot of that weight goes right in the leg straps, and it becomes very uncomfortable. So 5 minutes is actually really quick. So now we're gonna have Dan and Mike actually lower our trade show mannequin in a harness and simulate a fall, and we're gonna have some members of the IWR team actually do a retrieval. So the key is, when something like this happens, you know what your plan B is. You don't overreact, you act very calmly, and you get the person down to safety as quickly as possible. All right, go ahead, Mike. Woo! All right, thank you guys for the retrieval. Before we leave and wrap up everything, just looking at my watch, that took 3.5 to 4 minutes in the perfect stage scenario. So you know what kind of time you're looking at if you're not ready for it. And no one ever gears up and does a task and comes to work and says, well, I'm going to be ready to fall today. You're ultimately protecting yourself, engineering out the hazard, and protecting yourself from falling every time you put on a harness and assess your hazards. But like I said, the important thing is when you're starting to work with the partner, your tandem, your crew, to know what that plan B is. Like I said, that took 3.5 to 4 minutes, an ideal scenario. You want to know what to do to get your fellow worker down as quick as possible. We need to assess that individual. If there's an injury, you contact ACW management, your leader, to contact us, because ultimately we'll get the nurse on site, make sure they're okay, or if we have to enact the emergency procedure, we will do all that in the event. But the key is you choose your fall protection, you assess your task to keep yourself from falling. Just as a reminder, if there is an emergency, remember that number. It might be a long time since you all have gone through orientation, your stickers might be faded, should be going over every morning in the pre-test safety analysis. But that number in the event of an emergency is 314-362-0911. We've used it a couple times in a few events, and the reaction time to the site is very minimal. So that number will get you to the crews that will respond to you as quick as possible. So before I let you all go, each member of the supervisor team, superintendent, foreman, general foreman, by the end of the day today should have the talk related to today's safety focus of fall protection, part of National Fall Protection Week and Jacobs Safety Week. Make sure everybody reviews that and signs off on it. Go more in depth in it, talk about the type of work that you're doing, what type of fall protection you'll need to choose, and then ultimately what your plan Bs will be. But this week and today should not be the only time that we're focused on the safety topics that we've given you through Jacobs or that we've talked about fall protection. These are all should be talks that are occurring every day within your crews, within your companies, and each morning before we start. Know what we're going to do to protect ourselves from the hazards that we're associated with every day. If you've got new members to the crew, cover that with everybody. If you have apprentices who might be new to the construction trade, cover that with them. Make sure they're getting the mentality of a seasoned veteran in the construction industry. You have seen things and been taught things that they may not have seen or may not have been taught yet. You have a wealth of information. You should take that responsibility of teaching an apprentice with great honor and show them everything that you know about the construction and usher in that next stage of construction professionals. So like I said, this will be online and on YouTube. We'll get the website and the link out as quick as we can. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to come down here, enjoy the day, participate in our retrieval, and have a good, safe rest of the day and week.